The following is a fan-based discussion. All properties discussed are property of Toei Inc., Bandai, Hasbro, and Subaraya Productions. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Tokutalk. Been a while since we've done one of these, but it's good to be doing them again because I think we've got a really interesting topic to talk about here. And this is a Reiwa retrospective so far.
Yes.
Of Kamen Rider.
Yes.
What we have gotten from Kamen Rider so far.
Yes. And boy, has it been up and down.
Well,
a lot of down.
It's been mostly down for a while for this franchise. It had a huge uptick recently, and then seems to go straight back down again. Yeah, it's true.
Questionable choices have been made.
Mm.
It's weird, because I think we honestly have maybe like 1.5 series of goodness out of this.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
I would say it's even less. I would say 1 1/3.
I'll still give it to 1.5, mostly because of the fact that I'm counting one of their movies in terms of it.
Okay.
Simply because of the fact that it actually had something to do with the show proper.
Mm.
Talk about 0-1 in that case.
Yes. I figured that's where you were going.
0-1 sort of got screwed by a really bad competition arc and COVID.
I was going to say, that's because we start things off in the Reiwa era with Kamen Rider 0-1. A show that, after the last two that we had with Build and with Zio, with Build, we are making this is our attempt at a science fiction epic. With Zio, we are attempting a, epic across the ages, tribute to all that has come before us, and, think whatever you want about those. We've said our piece, but getting to 0, but then we go to 0-1, and 0-1 is relatively stripped down.
Yes.
And it is really leaning into the science fiction aspect of Kamen Rider.
With AI.
Because we have AI and androids, something that is, still very relevant to this day. As of recording, the actor strike is still going on. That is the one issue the studios are just not budging on.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in Japan, because I know they had something that did not work out, if I remember, with AI. Like, they tried it, and I think it failed, if I remember correctly.
Well, there was Miyazaki and his infamous thoughts regarding it. But 0-1, a relatively back to basics as far as what we had seen in the previous couple of years, where it is our, somewhat hapless hero, struggling comedian in Aruto, is gifted the powers of Kamen Rider and becomes the CEO of a major company, which...
After his grandfather passes.
Yeah. It's an almost, 90s comedy style plot at first.
Yeah, it is.
Where you have, the hapless Jamoke who becomes, the head of a major company, or, I don't know, in the John Goodman case, the King of England.
It's true. Forgot about that.
Remember King Ralph, always remember.
Or the Black Knight, for that matter.
Oh, God!
Martin Lawrence.
With Martin Lawrence, yeah! Oh, goodness me. Been a while since I saw that one, and there's a good reason.
Yeah, that ain't good either.
Because it sucks, but anyway.
0-1. Like I said, the way that this story was structured was really... it was written by the person who wrote X8. It was really well done. Up until we got to that competition arc.
Like you said, this show got screwed by COVID.
The competition arc happened beforehand.
I feel like it still had a hand in it.
Maybe
for keeping it going as long as it did.
Yeah,
because it is one of the few Rider shows where it is clearly broken up into arcs.
Yeah,
which we do see a little more of in the Reiwa era.
Yeah,
and seeing it, clearly broken into arcs, we have the first half where he's getting acclimated to being a Rider. We're stopping the what are the androids called in this? Humagear. With the Humagears, we're stopping them, and it's
Invincible Genrai.
Yeah, Invincible Genrai. It's pretty. Monster of the Week. We have the
for a little bit.
It is for a little bit. That's my point, because it starts off simple.
But the thing is, it also starts off really weird, because you have that whole Monster of the Week plot that happens, and then Jin shoots somebody in the head, and you sit here
It lets us know that we are going. It's an indicator of we are going back to a little more of a simpler story, but we're carrying over. We're bringing in new edge to this.
Yes. And the edge sort of kept going, but in a good way, for the most part, until Guy entered the scene.
Yeah.
And the show slowed hard.
This competition arc is one of the single worst story arcs, I think, in Kamen Rider history.
Which is weird, because so much happens during this arc. But
it's so badly written, and it goes on for so long.
The competition arc went on for about 6 episodes too long. It should have really only been like maybe 4 episodes.
Yeah, 4 I think would have been good.
Yeah.
But it goes on for like...
Ever.
It goes on for like 20, it feels like.
It's not that long, but
most
it
of the
feels like
it's most of the show, it feels like.
Yeah. Because it drags.
Yeah.
And then it just can't recover because COVID ends up screwing the ending.
Yeah.
And yes, we got a good movie out of this.
Yes.
That movie that actually finished off the show was very well done. It's honestly probably up there as one of my favorite Rider movies nowadays. But it's just everything that happens after the competition arc, COVID hitting, them changing everything, Guy getting a redemption because who asked for that? And
getting a redemption that was stupid.
It was very stupid. And then you end up getting the final form that doesn't feel like it's even there. It oddly enough feels like Fi's blaster, but worse.
Wow.
Which is weird because I love Zero 2 as a suit. And as a power set.
It is a good suit.
It's just Naruto gets taken over by Arc, and then, we end up getting oh god. This is one of those things that I really hate during this era where we got this, I think, for this show and Saber. Let's have a special version of the original suit.
Yeah. We do see that. But,
which is great when they use it in the movie, but here it's just like it didn't feel good.
But I do think this was a step in the right direction after what had come before it. Because we go from my favorite Kamen Rider prior to this was X-Aid. Yeah. And then we follow that up with Build, Zero. Yeah. And then we come to 01, and it's like, okay, I'm not a fan of this, but like I like enough about it. It's a step in the right direction in terms of where we can take Kamen Rider from here.
Into Reiwa.
Into Reiwa. And again, I've mentioned this in prior videos, but iterating upon itself. The way, if you're going to do back to basics and not in a way that feels just like cut down, but more stripped down or slimmed down, I should say, this is a good place to do it. Yeah. Where his form is a grasshopper. Yeah. We are bringing in things like, something of a hapless hero that we've seen in shows like Den-O and shows like O's, where they're kind of like a wanderer just trying to make their way through the world, and they get caught up in this, fantastical plot of monsters and mayhem.
And then they have to go fight Ultraman Orb.
And then they fight Ultraman Orb, as you do. And then we get the Saber.
Oh, God. I think the thing...
which I think might be the worst. There are some days I feel like this may have trumped Amazon's as the worst Kamen Rider I've ever seen.
It's weird, because I think anytime that Rider tries to do magic, they fail. Wizard, Ghost, Saber, Gotchard. It's just like, why is it like every single time you try to go for a more magical aspect of something, your story fails?
I think it comes down to the script.
Yeah, but it's really consistent, and I don't get it. There's a trend, and I don't like it.
But Kamen Rider Saber, where we are attempting to tell, we are leaning heavily into the fantasy aspect of Toku, of Rider, of this whole thing.
Story in general.
Yeah, story in general. Like everything about it is very fantastical in origin, as in like, from the land of fantasy. There isn't really any science at play here compared to 01, which was which was like pretty much all science fiction. It was all hard sci-fi, and then this is all hard fantasy. And oh my goodness. It's like I'm thinking about this and my brain is just kind of like having a bit of a meltdown trying to figure out where to start.
This is where things really start to feel like they went wrong. And it's sad because of the fact, like, I think COVID hurt this story so much. And it really hurt how this story was told and everything like that. But nothing about this was really that good. Like, yeah, the suits might be pretty, but that's all you got. Look past that, and the show doesn't know what to do.
Again, I think it really comes down to the script.
Yeah,
this one has a very, very bad script.
It's the same guy who wrote Ghost, and everybody was like, and then he wasn't there again. And everybody was like, and then it was still bad, and everybody was like,
what are you doing?
It just never got better. And he said he was going to be around more often, and then he still wasn't. But I don't think anything that he could have done. I think he's just a bad writer. In all honesty.
Yeah.
He wrote Ghost and then this, and everybody was just like, could you not have? Anybody else. As we'll see again in 2 years. But it's just like Saber. This was the first Kamen Rider, like, after I started watching it, where I dropped it.
Oh, wow.
I dropped it early. I didn't watch it until we had to review it, and I suffered. I'm doing the same thing with Gotchard now. So I dropped it, and I'm just like, I'm no.
Saber, again, it feels like some of the elements were there.
Literally.
It feels like some of the elements were there in terms of, all right, so we're gonna have this kind of a hero that we've seen before. He kind of reminds me of somebody like an Oz or a Gentaro, in that we have like a person who is heroic and honorable, and they want to do good things. They have like a way they are making their way through the world, and they get wrapped up in a fantastical adventure. We have secret societies. We have shady characters. We have a villainous organization. What about a girl who's kind of like Akiko? Remember her from W? Let's kind of do that again.
That helped Zero. But it's just like the story that it wanted the Saber in your head. God, I hated that thing. Thing's all trash.
It's the worst.
It's not good, and it's so disappointing and depressing that the fact that it just never could find what it wanted to do. It never had the story to tell. The characters, none of them were really that.
It doesn't feel like it has its own identity.
No, it just felt very plastic.
For all of the talk about like the stories that we tell and the power that they have to shape our future and our people, and it ends up with a story about people who are very bad at communicating with each other.
Yeah.
Villains who are just evil because evil, and then we have like the head of the Grand Library, but he's actually a bad guy because
reasons.
I don't know.
It just never
seemed like a good idea at the time.
It just never did anything right, and it's weird because we have somebody here who tells a much better story in his own goddamn show, right, Jeremy? Jeremy gets it. He's the narrator for King Gotchard, and it's just like, oh, they actually found their footing a couple of years later in another show and another series that actually tells their things a lot better. Yeah, Saber was just a misstep. And it's a big misstep. They fell off the cliff on this one. And they never recovered. Well, they did, but it took 2 years. Because then we have Revice. And it's weird because
just Revice.
We're looking at something that, especially the Western fandom, and we saw this a little bit on the Japanese side as well. The guy who played Vice has a history of racism. And he's never apologized for it. He keeps blocking people on Twitter and stuff whenever they bring him up. It's like, hey, remember when you did this? Because we don't forget. And it's just like, this show, it did not help that it had that controversy going in. And like I said, this is much more from a Western fan base thing, but it had that controversy going in. So we're looking at it through the lens of this character always being around. But the story was also not great. It just meandered. Half of the characters were not done well. The one female writer was done fairly well, but it's like they didn't go as far with her and Aguilera as they could have, because they kept setting it up as a love story, and then it just didn't do that.
No, they just didn't do it. Again,
Don Brothers had more balls to actually
quite literally
to actually do it, to play into that. Jesus Christ. We'll talk about that in our Sentai.
This again, it feels like, okay, remember when we had 2 writers? Remember W? We had 2 writers in that. What if we tried that again?
It's like, what if we actually had them in 2 bodies this time?
It's exactly, it's W, but we flip it, and now they are 2. It's instead of the 2-in-1 Kamen Rider, it's the 2 Kamen Riders.
But it's like, the further this show went in, the further I started to feel nothing.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
And I honestly think
it is a show that is very. When I think about Revice, I remember
nothing.
I remember most like how lack of a coherency it has in its theming.
Yeah.
So we're going for dinosaurs and stamps, but like what exactly is our end game here? There's some sort of government organization that's doing things. What does that have to do with dinosaurs? Nothing. What does that have to do with our Mexican Day of the Dead themed villains who are dressed in mariachi and flamenco costumes?
What does this have to do with George Kanzaki and him going, Daddy, the entire time? God, this story just didn't know what it wanted to do. And then it just kept trying to shove stuff in, but I could never find it. This is coming just, purely from me. I could never find it in me to care after a little bit. Mm-hmm. I stopped caring watching this show. And I got bored and frustrated. Mostly because of the fact that they decided to bring Vice's voice actor in for a couple episodes. And I'm just like, the only thing that he has with his face is somebody to punch.
So, yeah, Revice.
It good. Just didn't help not itself. Good. But then we got lucky.
Boy, did we.
With Geats.
Boy, did we. With the most exciting thing Kamen Rider has done in since over half a decade.
Yeah.
Kamen Rider Geats.
Yeah,
he sits on our desk.
This show was wild. It kept bringing you back every week because they set up the mystery really well from the beginning. It was just like things just kept happening that made you want to keep watching. And the characters are interesting. And we did not have another, happy-go-lucky, super earnest main character in Ace, but we had that in Mr.
Because it's like we had that with
Mr. Tanuki.
With the Tanuki. Yes, Keiwa Sakurai.
Yep.
So because we had that with Keiwa, and then we had Ace as a great balance to him.
Yeah.
All the other characters we had throughout of it, with Nago, with Buffa, with everyone else.
Yeah.
Everyone had a great character to play off of.
Yeah.
And they each play, whether that was, pairing someone off in like diametric opposites like Ace or Keiwa, or, just the way they all interact with each other throughout the story.
The way that the arcs set themselves up for the next one. I think the Yamato arc might have been the weakest one, but the Yamato arc honestly did not stick around that long.
Is that the first one?
No, that's I want to say it's either it's the fourth one.
Okay.
It's the one where Buffa went like, I'm going to work for the Yamato for a little bit.
Okay.
That was probably the weakest one, but unlike the competition arc in 01, I can say that because it's the same writer for X8 and 01. Mm-hmm. It did not stick around for that long.
It is a show that feels perfectly structured.
Yeah.
From the first episode to the last episode, like the way the last episode ends, dude, with let's just like meet up with these characters later. And that whole episode is just because like the fighting is over.
Yeah.
We're done with that. So let's just spend 15, 20 minutes, however long it was, just like meeting up with these characters later and seeing like how their lives have changed and progressed.
And we'll also see the next guy because Ace is God now.
Why not?
Yeah. It's like there were ways that the show just really set itself up well. And, it was something that when you see it trending on Twitter. And I think
for the right reasons.
Yeah, I think that's honestly a good gauge. It's just like when you see it trending on Twitter, we're not going to call it X. When you see it trending on Twitter, it's just like, oh, there's a reason people are talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about this a lot more, actually, when we end up getting to our Sentai version of this, because, my God. So...
And again, I think, getting back to what I said about Kamen Rider iterating on itself, what I mean by that is, it's Kamen Rider making shows about Kamen Rider that has come before it, and we're just gonna take that and just like make a show about that.
Yeah.
What is it about Kamen Rider? What is it about the monsters he's fighting, the organizations, the secret societies, the people and victims that he helps along the way, whatnot, so forth. And it never feels we never feel like it's evolving beyond that.
Yeah.
With the last three.
And with the one that we're watching now.
And with the one we're watching now, it doesn't feel that way. And then Geats comes along. It is my favorite since X8. Geats comes along, and it's like, here's what we're going to do. What if we just told a story about characters?
Yeah.
And it really shows. This is not a show about what does it mean to be a Kamen Rider? What does it mean to be a hero? What happens to let's go save the day? Let's do all this thing. It's like, no, it is about Ace. It's about Keiwa. It's about these people as characters. You could have done away with this. You could have had like a secret battle royale show.
Yeah.
And done away with the whole rider aspect, and it still would have worked.
But then you had like things like, oh, how does this affect the people outside of the battle royale, like we see with Cable's parents and them both being killed?
Mm-hmm.
How does this affect...
Or Nago with her being
not real,
so to speak.
Like the further that the show went along, it's just like, oh, I'm invested in so much, and then Time Fire came in, so so much just kept happening, and I was just like, oh, we're in this.
And you talk about you've mentioned this in Gotchard, but also with this setting up the mystery.
Yeah,
it's not just that they set up the mystery; it doesn't feel like they're stringing you along.
Yeah,
it leaves you with enough of a hook of like, oh, I want to know where this goes. I want to see what happens next. It's like I am invested in them as characters, and this story is interesting, so I want to see where they are going to build this up to. And every single time, by God, they pulled it off.
Yeah.
And it would lead to something like, oh, okay, so there's this whole like foundation from the future that's controlling the Battle Royale, and that's interesting, and the way they set up sponsors, and the way Ace has been like reincarnating for thousands of years trying to get to his mom, and it's just like fascinating stuff that they keep reeling you in with, and then they find a way to like outdo it and raise the stakes for the next season.
Yeah, it's wild. It's just, like what
for the next arc.
What? We got that a couple times during the show. Just like, oh my God.
Yeah. I think like the moment with Nago, and like when we see the two different versions of the news footage.
Yeah. Oh, that was wild.
And that was one
wild.
of the that might stand out for me as like one of the best moments in Toku history.
It was very well directed.
If I may be so bold.
Very well written.
Well acted, everything.
It was just like, oh God, everybody in this show is going to have a career after this. Y'all better work.
I hope so. Because that's one thing that really does stand out is like everyone in this show is great.
Yeah.
All the actors are great. Everyone is perfectly cast. The script is great. It's just like sometimes you get something, it's like this, it's Garo VR, it's Dawn Brothers, it's like, oh, here's something that is the most exciting thing that has happened in the medium of tokusatsu in decades. And it's amazing.
It's great. And it's weird because once we end up doing the Super Sentai one, it's going to be almost a complete opposite of the feel of most of this video because now we have to talk about Gotchard.
Well,
not really. At the same time,
we've said what we've said in our first impressions.
Yeah,
it still has a ways to go.
It's not even so much that it has the ways to go. It's just the fact that where it started, we're just like, oh, we've already been here, and we don't want to do this again. So we're not going to talk about it again. But go watch our first.
But we have our first impressions up on the first 7 episodes.
Yeah, go watch our first
so far that
on Gotchard, and we're just like.
But I for years on this channel have just been like, Kamen Rider, you need to step your game up. Geats came along, and they finally did that. And now we're back to Gotchard, which again, I think has potential, but I'm not seeing it yet. Yeah. And it worries me.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can turn things around, but we shall see.
Yeah.
But that is our thoughts on the Reiwa era so far in quick summary for Kamen Rider.
Yeah, it's been...
Geats is a masterpiece. The rest of it is...
It's been such a wavelength
is not good.
Up and then the farthest down. And then up again, and now we're here at the down once again. And I just think, I'm hoping going forward, whatever ends up coming after Gotchard, because I'm not really having a lot of hope for this show in all honesty. Whatever ends up coming after Gotchard is just like, I really hope that you step it up. Because what you're doing now isn't doing that. Yeah.
That'll do it for that.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think of the Reiwa era so far in the comments below. What is your favorite? What is your least favorite of the shows we have so far?
Don't forget to join us all the things. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. Say bye, Jeremy. Bye, Jeremy.
Thank you for watching.